Hi everyone, this is Jody from jolouis.com, and today I have a 3D decoupage technique to share with you. To make these flowers, I used the Altenew Beautiful Day stamp set, and I used the outline image from this set and stamped it 3 times onto some Nina Solar White cardstock using Catherine Pooler icing on the cake ink. I used the brown color ink because I want the stamen on the final image to be brown and not black. I've stamped the image out 3 times because I want to create 3 different layers on my final piece. The first layer will be the entire flower. The second layer will be the inner petals as well as the folds in the outer petals. And the third layer will be the folds in the inner petals. To start with, I'm coloring the inner petals. This will be the second layer. I'm coming in with my Prismacolor pencils, and I'm going to use 4 different shades of pink. The darkest pink color that I'm using right now is the magenta color. And all of the different colors that I use will be linked on my blog. There will also be on my blog a detailed picture of the different layers that I have created and which sections I have cut out. So on each of these 3 images, I'm only coloring the sections of the flower that you'll be able to see on that layer. I'm doing this because the detailed coloring takes me a while to do, and I don't want to color any section that is going to be hidden by another layer. It's just a waste of my time. So on this second image, I'm only coloring the outer petals of the flower and I'm not coloring in the outer folds of these flowers, just the petals. Now, you'll see that after I finish coloring in this last petal on the second image, I realized that I actually wanted the outer folds of the outer petals to be part of my second layer. So I'm coloring those in on this first image that I have here. Once I have done that, I move on to the third layer. And all that I am using for my third layer is the folds on the inner petals of the flower. And once I have colored these in, I'm going to come in on all of these petals using the other 3 shades of pink. So then the one that I am using now is just called pink. Then the third color I'm using is rose, and the final color is light peach. But as I said, all of these colors will be linked on my blog. So while I color the rest of this, I'll just let you listen to some music, and I'll be back once I've finished coloring. now that I've finished the detail colouring of the flowers, I'm coming in with the darkest shade of pink and just scribbling in the sections that are actually going to be cut out with the image. I'm doing this so that once I pop up the layers on with foam tape, I'm doing it so that you won't be able to see any stark white image. Now that all my colouring is complete, I'm going to fussy cut out all of my images. For this first layer, I'm cutting out the entire image. Once I've cut out this layer, I move on to my second flower. My second flower, I'm going to cut out the inner petals, including their folds. And I'm also going to cut out the folds of the outer petals. For the third layer, I'm only going to cut out the folds of the inner petals. Now that my images are cut out, I also need to cut out the center of the two layers of my flowers. This is pretty easy to do just with a craft knife, and I'm doing this on my cutting mat. Now it's time to put the image together. So I'm using some Scotch 3M mounting tape in a clear version, and I'm just going to add some of the tape to the second layer, and I am then going to stick that directly on top of my first layer. So this is where you get a better idea of why I colored in the section that I didn't need on the first layer. It's so that when you look from the side, you can't see any white area. Next, I'm going to add the mounting tape to each of the little folds on the flower. I'm going to do the outer folds, and I'm also going to do the inner folds. The inner folds create the third layer of the flower. I'm cutting some really tiny strips of the mounting tape here, and it does get very fiddly, but I promise you it's worth it at the end because these flowers look really awesome. So you just see me adhering all of the pieces, and I'll come back once I've finished adhering them. Now I'm going to create the stamen for the center of my flowers. I wanted these stamen to be 3D just to add dimension to my 3D decoupage technique. So I've got these little stamen pieces, but I don't have any that are brown. So I'm taking my Copic refill in the clay color E44, and I'm just adding drops of this color to the stamen, and I'm just doing this on some baby wipes. Once that's dry, I'm going to fold each of the little stamen pieces in half and push them through the center of my flower. Now you see why we cut out the center before. Once I have pushed all of my pieces through, then I'm just arranging them in an arrangement that I find pleasing, and I'm going to just use regular sticky tape to hold them in place at the back. And here is the finished flower. Now that we've created the flowers, we need to work on our background. So for the background, I'm using the Altenew Watercolor Wonders stamp set, and I'm using some Altenew ink cubes, and I'm stamping my images onto some Tim Holtz watercolor paper. For the colors that I'm using, you can see them listed on my blog. For each time that I'm stamping, I'm also spritzing each stamp using a little mini mister, and I'm doing this because I want each image to look very watercolored. I want the background to look quite blurred, and so this was the best way I knew to create this. So I'm just going to finish up all of the stamping. I'll let you listen to some music while you watch, and I'll be back once I finish. To add to my final design, I'm just stamping out some of the greenery images using the Altenew Beautiful Day stamp set. I've stamped these images using the Catherine Pooler icing on the cake ink so that they match my flowers from before. I'm colouring in these images using some more Prismacolor pencils, and the exact colours will be linked on my blog. Once I finish colouring all of these images, I'm going to fussy cut all of them out so that they're ready to go onto my final project. To blur my background piece even further, I'm going to cover it using a piece of vellum cut to 5 1/4 inches by 4 inches. On my phone, I took a picture of how I wanted all my images arranged. So then I've got my sentiment piece exactly where I want it. And I'm using my Misty tool and some Versamark ink to stamp out my greeting from the Altenew painted greeting stamp set. And I'm just going to heat set this using some gold embossing powder just from my stash. And I'm waiting until my heat tool gets really hot before I bring it to the vellum. Now I'm going to adhere my background panel to my card base, which is 5.5 inches by 4.25 inches. To add my vellum piece to my background, I'm going to use some Ranger Multi-Matte Medium just in the very corners of the piece and also behind the sentiment. To ensure this is glued down and will stay properly, I'm using a heavy acrylic block. To finish off my card, I am using the image that I took on my phone to arrange my pieces in the design that I want. So I'm adhering all of the greenery pieces straight to the vellum piece using some Ranger Multi-Matte Medium, and I'm adhering my 3D decoupage flowers to the background using some 3M mounting tape. The reason I'm using the foam tape to add my flowers is, one, to give it more dimension, but also because we adhered the stamen to the back of these flowers. So if we used normal tape, the flowers wouldn't stick down properly to our card base. And here is a look at my final design. I hope that you like my card. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel to see more of my future projects. For more details, including a supplies list and more pictures, please head over to my blog, which is listed in the description below this video. Have a great day. Bye.